The older brother gets great joy out of showing his younger brother how to draw. But that younger brother, he's going to draw faster and better than he would have if he wouldn't have had an older brother, a mentor, to come into his life and come alongside of him and help him.
Hi, I'm Chris Cody. I don't know about you, but I know that I love to absorb content. There's so much free content out there. However, one challenge that I do have is that I often struggle to then take that content and put it into practice. I don't change the habits that I need to based off of the video that I've been inspired by. If that's you, I want you to watch this video, and then I would love for you to comment, and we would love to hear your thoughts below.
Okay, I have, over the years, I have a practice I'm going to share with you. In fact, I would encourage you to maybe engage that in your life. Every month for 40 years, I have what I call a learning lunch. Very simple. I find somebody bigger, faster, better, smarter, more successful than me, and that's not hard to do. And I just ask them if I could take them to lunch for an hour and a half. And you know, I've had hundreds of these. And it's a learning lunch. I don't even have lunch. I do the learning. They have the lunch. I buy their meal. Because the reason I want to spend an hour and a half with them is I want to ask them questions. In fact, I have 7 questions specifically that I want to ask. Because I want to sit at their feet and I want to learn from them, and I have what I would call a very teachable spirit, and I just say, okay, I want to get better. And I think I'm going to get better with you. Mark Cole, our CEO of the Maxwell Enterprise, our companies, basically loves to teach on the power of proximity. The fact that when you get close to somebody, when you get close to greatness, when you get close to bigger people, what's beautiful about bigger people is they really make you feel bigger than you've ever felt before. Just like, to be honest with you, smaller people reduce you, bigger people enlarge you. And so while we're having the learning lunch, they're eating, I'm asking the 7 questions. Now, one of the questions I ask, as I looked at them, I say, what is the greatest lesson that you've ever learned in your life? And I've had hundreds of answers to that question. But there's one thing over the years, regardless of the person, the background, the profession, there's one thing that answer always has in common. It has hundreds of times. When I ask them, what's the greatest lesson you ever learned? They always, not sometimes, not most times, they always go to a difficult time in their life. They always go to a time when they failed greatly, a time when adversity almost overcame them. They go to the darkest hour of their life, and out of that darkness, they find a principle, a truth, a practice that has absolutely, positively changed their life. Now, this is huge, because I can promise you, if you and I could go out 5 years and look back at 2020, we're going to find that this was a time not only of wilderness, but it was a great time of creativity. It was a great time of advancement, because every opportunity is disguised by a difficulty. That's why so many times we don't seize the opportunity, because all we see is the adversity. But inside of that is the opportunity. It's where creativity is. In fact, what I'm saying to people all the time when they kind of give up hope, is I say, there's always an answer. In fact, to be honest with you, there's usually more than one answer. And during these dark times, the time that you're going through right now, it's the time that presses our soul. It's the time where we want to, deliver me. When's it going to be over? When can I get out of it? But let me just say, stay there. Stay on the operating table. Let God finish the surgery. Hold steady. Because I know in your life and I know in my life, there are great lessons to be learned during this time. We don't curse the darkness. We bless the darkness. We embrace the darkness. Again, we don't run from our problem, but we do run to our source. I love the leadership dance. But going and shifting from soloist to conductor is just an incredible shift in our life. And I tell leaders every day that when you become a leader, your first thought no longer is about yourself. Your first thought is about the people that you lead. Wow. That's what shifting from soloist to conductor is all about. I have an ink pen that's on my desk. It's a marker. It's a yellow marker, but it's a nice one. It's a Mont Blanc pen, so it's not a little cheap yellow marker. It's a very nice pen. It's a gift to me from my inner circle. Some of the people that are closest to me. A few years ago, they gave me this yellow highlight pen, Mont Blanc pen, and they had inscribed on the side of this highlighter these words: "You highlight our lives." I thought, man, every time I pick that pen up and I'm marking my book that I'm reading, I'm realizing that just as I'm highlighting the words that come and jump back at me that I'm trying to learn and apply to my life, that I highlight my people's lives. And that's what I want for you. I want you to highlight your fellow teachers, your fellow leaders, administrators in your education system. I want you to highlight your students. I want you to be a highlight in their life. That's when we leadership from soloist to conductor. The second shift I want to speak to you about briefly was by far my hardest shift to make, and that's shifting from pleasing people to challenging people. This is what I call a relational shift. And this was a hard one for me to make because I really wanted to please everybody. I wanted to make everybody happy. I found out that didn't work. But I just thought, I mistakenly thought that a good leader, everybody was happy. I didn't realize that there's no truth in that at all. And I had to go from affirmation of people to what are we accomplishing together as a team. I had to quit asking the question, "Are you okay?" and ask the question, "Are we committed? Are we committed?" And I learned very quickly that you never know what kind of team players you have until you ask for commitment. And so I learned to establish upfront expectations. I learned to sit down and say, okay, since I'm making this shift and I'm going from just trying to make you happy to leading you, I could still remember when I wrote the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and I was at a conference speaking, and I was signing that book, the 21 Laws book. And a gentleman came up to me to have me sign his book. And so I start signing, and he said, I disagree with one of your laws. And I said, okay. And I kept signing the book, and I handed it back to him. He didn't move. He just said, I don't think you heard me. I said, I disagree with one of your laws. I said, oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah, it's okay. Well, it was okay with me that he didn't agree with one of my laws, but it wasn't okay with him that it was okay with me that I didn't agree with one of his laws. And so he brought it up to me the third time, and I stopped him. I said, okay, I got it. You don't agree with one of the laws. It's okay. I said, look, I said, I want you to understand why I wrote the book. I didn't write the book to make you happy. I wrote the book to help you. I'm a leader, not a clown. And it's okay if you disagree with one of the books. You don't even have to apply it. It's like a person says they disagree with the law of gravity. And the third thing that, wow, I wish I had time on this one, mindset, how we think matters. I think the greatest gap between success and failure is the thinking gap. I wrote a book. It's been very popular. In fact, it's sold well over 1 million copies. It's called How Successful People Think. And it's all about the fact that the thinking patterns of successful people are different than unsuccessful people. I'm not saying successful people are smarter. I'm just saying they think differently. And in fact, in that book, I talk about 11 thinking patterns that successful people engage in that unsuccessful people don't. My father just passed away in 2020. In fact, on July 4th last year. He was 98 years of age. He was an incredible man, had an unbelievable attitude in his life. He worked full time up to the age of 95. And, it was so interesting. He grew up in a little town in southern Ohio, not too far from Cincinnati. just a little town, very little, very kind of a poor town. In fact, he said there were only 3 families that, in the town that basically had much means at all. And so he did errands for those people, and he came to the conclusion as a kid doing errands for all 3 of those families that the difference between them and everyone else is how they thought. Their mindset really was the difference. And when my father was a young man, with the Depression, everybody was out of a job, but my father wasn't. So men were standing in line for food every day, and my father had 3 part-time jobs during the most difficult time of that Depression. And I said, Dad, how did you do that? He said, well, no one had any jobs, so I'd go to the hardware store, and I'd just basically tell the hardware owner, I know you can't afford me today, but I love to work. Can I just work for you for free? And after the hardware store would get over the shock of here's some stranger that wants to work for him for free and understood he really meant it, he'd give him a few errands. My dad would work hard. At the end of the day, he'd shake his hand and say, thanks, I loved working for you today. And by this time, the hardware owner was saying, I'm so sorry, man, my gosh, I wish I could pay you. You really helped me today. And that's not, no, this is good. I know you can't pay me. It's okay. I just wanted to work for you. And then he would say, if ever you start to kind of recover financially and you have room for maybe a part-time helper, would you just call me? I'd love to work for you. Next day, my dad would go to a different store, do the same thing, a different store. Literally, by the time the first month was over, he had 3 part-time jobs. Now, what's the difference between my dad having 3 part-time jobs and everyone else standing in line for food? It's the mindset. It's how we think. It is absolutely the difference maker. The 4th area in the power of 5 is in the area of leadership. Of course, it would be in leadership. You don't think I could talk to you about something that matters and not have leading in the process, but it's a fact that leaders really matter and leadership really makes a difference. You see, in my 20s, I came to a conclusion that has been the motivation for me to teach and write on leadership ever since. I've been writing and teaching on leadership for over 50 years. In fact, the CEO of Random House recently told me that I've written more leadership material than any person who's ever lived in the history of mankind. I love leadership, but the passion of training you to lead and teaching you how to lead comes from a conviction, a conclusion that became a conviction when I was in my 20s. I concluded that everything rises and falls on leadership, everything. I need you to help me. What will make this vision really work in your life? And what happens is then you get there, a little piece of them in the vision, a little piece of them, until all of a sudden they are expressing it not in this is John's vision, or this is Sarah's vision. No, this is our vision. This is us. Me to we. You got to get the vision to me to we. And then I talk about in this book about what unites us is greater than what divides us. And today this message is hugely needed because we're in a very divisive community. And basically we got this real stupid dysfunctional mindset that you're either for me or against me. And if you don't agree with me, then you're against me and you're over on the other side. And I said, no. What you got to understand is we're into the things that unite us. We all have our uniqueness. We all have our differences. Diversity is a wonderful thing. But what unites us? And here's the key. You see, okay, what we focus on expands. This is a fact. So if I focus, okay, let's say Sarah and I, if I focus on the differences of Sarah and me, then the differences begin to expand. But if I focus on our similarities, what Sarah and I have in common, the unity begins to expand. And what you want to do is you want to constantly help people focus on the things that bring them together, that unite us, because that's where the effectiveness of the work will take place. So let's review quickly. To change our world, we must have 1, a passion that stirs us, 2, a transformation that changes us, 3, a team that helps us, and these are all equipping, empowering steps. Number 4, a vision that unites us, that gets us on the same page. You see, here's what I do. I separate in my vision to unite. I get rid of my pretenders. Now I get my players together and I say, now let's get all on the same page. Now, what I'm sharing with you in Change Your World, you have to understand, I've been doing this for 10 years internationally. We are literally in countries' lives. We are invited by the presidents of countries. So we're in Guatemala, we're in Paraguay, we're in Costa Rica, we're getting ready to go into the Dominican Republic, or we're getting ready to go into New Guinea. The presidents of countries invite us in. We don't go in without a presidential invitation. Then we go vet them, and we vet the 8 streams of influence. We government, business, media, arts, education, religion, health, and sports. And we go to all the top players in all of these 8 different streams, and we get buy-in from them that they will teach the values that we in small groups. And then we come in, and we go for the tipping point. For example, Guatemala has 20 million people, so we're going for 2 million to be in these what we call transformation tables, these small groups, teaching values. And so we're at 1.5 million. So we're getting close to the tipping point. Malcolm Gladwell says, if you can get 10%, you can change a culture. Well, that's what we're trying to develop, what we call values cultures, okay? And so let me, okay, wow. I may not get through all the chapters. There's so much I want to make sure you get as from a leadership standpoint. Okay. When I cast vision and when I teach, I give pictures. People do what people see. So I like to use pictures. I like to use metaphors. I like to give them visually something to grasp so that they can mentally and emotionally grasp it also. So let me give you 6 pictures of what I call a transformational movement, because I've got this down. There's no theory here. I mean, millions and millions of people now, we really know what works to become more valuable to their family, to their friends. In other words, there's what I call a values lift. Now, this is huge. And we discovered it's in small groups. In fact, we have a chapter in this book called, Transformation. You change your world one table at a time. That's what we do. In a table of 6, 7 people, we have 25 values that we talk about and discuss, and we go practice. So we come back and talk about it some more. And what are we learning? You see, this is huge. When I several years ago did the opening session for the United Nations to all the ambassadors, I spoke for 2 hours on the subject, 3 questions every follower asks of their leader. And these aren't questions they literally ask. These are intuitive questions that they feel. The 3 questions are, do you care for me? Can you help me? And can I trust you? The first one, do you care for me, is all about your compassion for people, your valuing people. Can you help me? It's all about your competence. And can I trust you is all about your character. And those 3 questions are best answered in small groups. That's where you really get to sense that trust factor, that competence factor, that caring. And so we found that the magic is in small groups. And so we do this. In fact, because you're educators, I want to encourage you. Again, this is a free resource to you. If you go to our webpage, you can find we have curriculum for students. And we have right now 1.5 million students going through our curriculum right during class hours. And it's called the iLead curriculum. And there are three different years of iLead. And it's in small groups. And the students facilitate those round tables, those transformation tables. I was just with the Secretary of Education in Guatemala, and she was sharing with me, now we have over 1 million people in the classrooms there, and she said, John, our teachers are telling us that it's incredible, the change, the transformation is happening. And she said, here's what's interesting. Teachers are telling us by the 3rd week of doing the values training, they can see the change in the students. This is very exciting to me. By the way, all this material is available to you free if you would like to use it in your school system. We right now have 4,000 teachers around Knoxville in Knox County, led by their superintendents, going through the Change Your World book, and they're reading it, and they're getting ready to do transformation tables in the classroom there. We'd love for you in Louisville to join us. In fact, if you do, let us know. But here's the thing. All this is free. It's all online. It's for you, okay? I would encourage you, first of all, though, to read the book and understand how we do it, and then the resources are totally free for you. And this is very exciting to me, because why do we teach values? Well, it's very simple. An empty bag won't stand up straight. There's nothing to keep it there. Just a little wind and it falls over, a little gust of wind and it's gone. Well, what we've discovered is that to bring transformation into students' lives, it has got to start on the inside. It's got to start in with the values. And so we teach these incredible values that brings life change to them. Here's something very interesting. With social media and kids so desperately wanting validation from people that they don't even know, one of the things we have discovered is the more good values you have on the inside, the less validation you need from others on the outside. So this transformation material is all about being bigger on the inside than you are on the outside.
If you have the privilege of leading a team or an organization, and you would love help with enhancing your leadership culture, maybe even developing some of your high potential leaders, just follow the link on the screen and we would love to connect with you.
You see, when you're at the head of class, you're telling everybody else what you're doing and they're watching you, and you do very little growing yourself because you're expending your time with others. You always want to be around people bigger, better, faster, smarter than you. Every month for the last 40 years, I have what I call learning lunches. And what that means is I ask somebody to have lunch with me, and the person I ask to have lunch with me, they're more successful than me, and I don't even eat that lunch. I just take them out. I've got 7 questions I want to ask them. I feed them, and while they're eating, I ask them those 7 questions, and I learn from them, and I learn from their experience. And what am I doing? I'm creating a growth environment where other people who have already experienced what I haven't experienced, already traveled where I haven't traveled, can help me to get better. So you just want to be in an environment where other people are ahead of you. You want to be in an environment where the atmosphere around you is affirming. Oh my. Where you are encouraged. Encouragement is the oxygen of the soul. So you want to be around that kind of an environment that just kind of speaks into your life and lifts you up and believes in you and helps you get to that kind of level. This is absolutely huge. You want to be in an environment where failure is your friend, where you're allowed to practice leadership, and in practicing leadership, you have some misses. I think one of the big mistakes we make, in fact, I've not written a book on this and I've not done any teaching because I'm just starting to share it with people. But I think one of the big mistakes we make about failure and success is that we separate them. And we basically say, now, be successful and don't fail, but, really get great, but boy, don't make any mistakes. And so we take failure and success and we separate them as far as we possibly can. And that's not realistic, and that's not helpful at all. Success and failure should always be together. I have never met a person successful that didn't have great mess ups and mistakes. I never had anybody say, well, it was very easy to be successful, and I got there very quickly, and I had no problems, and I had no adverse issues. No. That person's not building a business. They're on drugs. Come on. Success and failure, they go hand in hand. It's out of my failures, I learn and improve, which makes me more successful. In my learning lunches, one of the questions I ask 7, but one of the questions I ask is, how has failure shaped your life? That's a great question. And inevitably, somebody will say, well, let me tell you something. Let me tell you what I learned from my failure. I have one of my companies is a coaching company called the John Maxwell Team, and we have a process of a cycle of success, and in that cycle of success, it is test, fail, learn, improve, and reenter. And we're always testing, trying things we never tried, and because of that, we have some misses, we have some failures. But what's the value of failure? What you learn. What's the value of learning? Improving. What's the value of improving? You get to get back in the game. And it's a cycle. And so we just, every time we go through those 5 steps, we just get a little bit higher. We climb a little bit more. And, 37,000 coaches in 172 countries would tell you that this really works. This really works. But it only works because we're in a growth environment where failure is embraced as a friend. So when people say, wow, whoa, that was a mess up. Okay, so I have a question. What did you learn? You see, if you learned from your failure, it becomes a real asset to you. The second thing is the testing is good for you. It's good for me. So we'll be tested, but that testing is good for us. In Luke chapter 4, verse 1, now Jesus, full of the Holy Spirit, left the Jordan. That's where he was just baptized, a spiritual high in his life. And he was led by the Spirit. He was led by God into the wild. And for 40 wilderness days and nights, he was tested by the devil. You see, one of the values of testing is it shows us the validity of our faith. A faith that has never been tested cannot be trusted. But a faith that has been tested and has passed the test can always be trusted. When I was 51 at our literally company's Christmas party, I had a heart attack. And for a couple of hours, it was kind of touch and go whether I would even live. And I always wondered as a Christian if when I came time for me to die, if I would have what Christians call dying grace or peace at that time. And I always wondered, I wonder if that'll happen to me. And during those couple of hours that were kind of just really come and go on me, in fact, I told the doctor, I said, I asked him one time, am I dying? He said, well, you aren't yet, but you will die if we can't stop this heart attack. I had such incredible peace. I had a calmness, a sereneness about myself. I laid there and I was absolutely finding out the truth about dying grace and dying peace. In fact, today, when I think of death, I look at it, I think I've already been there. I know that I have the grace, I know I have the peace to die. Now, why am I so confident in my faith? Because it has been tested. It passed the test. Well, Jesus was tested in 3 areas. When he went into the wilderness, he was tested in his humanity. Luke chapter 2 through 4. He ate nothing during those days, those 40 days. And when the time was up, he was hungry. And so the devil, playing on his hunger, gave him the first test. Since you're God's son, command the stone to turn into a loaf of bread. Jesus answered by quoting Deuteronomy, it takes more than bread to really live. And one of the testings that we have during COVID-19 is in the weak areas of our life, our tendencies, our areas perhaps to sin. And Jesus went through that, and pretty much Jesus shows us how to pass that test, and that is that he was just basically saying, I live bigger than my hurts. I live bigger than my weaknesses. He was tested in his loyalty in verses 5 through 8, and this was the second test. And he put the whole earth on display for Jesus, and he said, all that you see before you, it's all yours in their splendor to serve your pleasure. He said, I'm in charge of them, and all of them, and can turn them over to whomever I wish. If you'll worship me, they're yours. The whole works. And Jesus refused again, backing his refusal with Deuteronomy. Worship the Lord your God, and only the Lord your God. Serve him with absolute single-heartedness. In other words, the loyalty of Jesus was being tested. Psalm 27:1 says, the Lord is my light and salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Whom shall I be afraid of? During this difficult time in your life, you don't run from your problem, you run to your source. You're not alone on this journey. And let me just say the last thing, step behind the people. There's something about security when somebody covers you behind. There's something about knowing that in your vulnerable position, what the things that you cannot see coming, someone is behind you to see it coming. And it's a beautiful thing. I can still remember in elementary school many years ago when we'd have our fire drills, we always had two people, one in the class that would lead us out. So when the fire bell rang, he or she was the designated visual leader, and they'd lead us out of the classroom and down to the exit and outside. It was always interesting to me. The teacher in our school was the last to leave the classroom. It was kind of like, I'm going to make sure everybody is out, everybody is going to safety before I step out and close the door. That is a beautiful picture of the leadership dance. I'm stepping before you visually so you can be secure in where we're going, and who is leading you is more important than what's before you. I step beside you, which means I'm in a listening posture, asking questions. I'm learning from you. Why? So that I can lead out of your concerns. And I'm behind you. I'm just behind you to making sure that you're okay, that nothing's going to come to you in a vulnerable position where you can't see. And I just want you to know it's all well. I'm backing you up. I've got your back. I love the leadership dance. But going and shifting from soloist to conductor is just an incredible shift in our life. And I tell leaders every day that when you become a leader, your first thought no longer is about yourself. Your first thought is about the people that you lead. Wow. That's what shifting from soloist to conductor is all about. I have an ink pen that's on my desk. It's a marker. It's a yellow marker, but it's a nice one. It's a Mont Blanc pen, so it's not a little cheap yellow marker. It's a very nice pen. It's a gift to me from my inner circle. Some of the people that are closest to me. A few years ago, they gave me this yellow highlight pen, Mont Blanc pen, and they had inscribed on the side of this highlighter these words: "You highlight our lives." I thought, man, every time I pick that pen up and I'm marking my book that I'm reading, I'm realizing that just as I'm highlighting the words that come and jump back at me that I'm trying to learn and apply to my life, that I highlight my people's lives. And that's what I want for you. I want you to highlight your fellow teachers, your fellow leaders, administrators in your education system. I want you to highlight your students. I want you to be a highlight in their life. That's when we leadership from soloist to conduct. Well, what made you amazing on that day was you were amazing several days. I mean, when you go to college, you spend 4 or 5 years working on your degree, and finally one day you get your diploma. And when you get your diploma and you graduate, everybody comes and gives you gifts and takes pictures and has a party and hugs you and says, "That's amazing. Congratulations. You're a success." Well, no, you didn't become a success the day you graduated. You became a success when you registered for school. You became a success when you went to school. Became a success when you went to classes. You became a success when you did your homework. You were a success when you were doing all these things. You see, you're already a success. It just one day at graduation shows up. And the show up stage of our success is way overrated. And the storing, the working, the behind the scenes consistency is highly underrated. I was having a conversation one day with my friend Tyler Perry, and we were talking about consistency. And he was telling me about the fact that, as an actor, he wanted to produce and do, movies, plays. So he built him a studio and he outgrew it. So he built him another studio, he outgrew it. So he built him a studio that he thought was bigger than life. So I'll never outgrow that. And guess what? He was so successful, he outgrew it. And he said, I didn't want to do it again. He said, I was so tired of building studios. And so for 2 years, he said, I just didn't do it. Finally, one day I said, if I'm ever going to get to where I need to go, I got to go build the studio. So he did. And so we had this conversation. Of course, now he's just one of the major stars in that world. And when we were having the conversation, I said to Tyler, I said, you know what your lesson teaches me? And what your lesson teaches me is when you can afford to quit, you can't afford to quit. because at the end, you're on that compounding time, and it just begins to reproduce it itself. I mean, I guess if we're going to quit, we ought to quit the first day so that we don't have any compounding going on. We didn't start anything, so we don't lose anything. And I'm just so excited that I can share with you this power of 5, and I'm so excited, Daniel, that I can help your leaders really go to a whole new level, because your company is doing such good work, and you just need to have the good news spread around. And so what I want to do is to now give you these incredible 5 things that really matter. I call them the power of 5, okay? We've got the story. Now let's begin to build it, okay? There are 5 things that if you'll do well at Viseo, I will promise you'll be highly successful. I'm going to give you the 5 immediately, and then I'm going to teach on them. First of all, growth matters, your personal growth. It's essential to your success. Number 2, connecting matters. Your ability to connect and relate with people and influence them to be on your team. This is huge. Number 3, mindset, how you think. It truly matters. Number 4, leadership matters. How you lead, who you lead. It makes a huge difference. And finally, significance really matters. So now that we understand kind of the big picture of the power of 5, let's just kind of dive for a moment. And let me talk to you about, first of all, growth matters. Okay, you're sitting at the table with me right now, okay? It's just the two of us. We're just talking. If you said, okay, John, you're 74, you're at the top of your game, you have 7 companies, you're still growing, blowing, and just moving things out. What is the secret to your success? I would tell you without any question, personal growth. The secret of my success is that I am committed every day to intentionally improving my life. You see, your first investment should be in you. If you wouldn't bet on yourself, why should anyone else bet on you? The first person that you should pour into yourself, as far as saying, I'm going to get some training, is for you. Because you see, a better you makes a bigger you, and a bigger you makes a more influential you. And so this whole area of growth is absolutely amazing. We hear the expression, it's lonely at the top, and we think that's a leadership expression. That's not a leadership expression. Let me say this. If you're lonely at the top of the mountain, you're not a leader, you're just a hiker. Yeah, you're just a hiker. Because you see, leaders take people with them to the top. Leaders don't cross the finish line alone. You see, I go down and I find you in the valley and I say, okay, I'm going to connect with you. I'm going to take you to the top. In my book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, there's the law of connection, that leaders touch a heart before they ask for a hand. There's the law of buy-in. People buy into the leader before they buy into the vision. And so every day I work hard at connecting with people. It's a passion of mine. How do I connect with them? In my book, Developing the Leader Within You 2.0, I have a very important chapter on the 7 motivations of people. Basically, the thesis of the chapter is that people are motivated for different reasons, and you have to know what their motivation is. And you have to find that, because then you lead them based on what they want and what they need in their life. You see, the difference between leaders and managers is that managers lead everybody the same and leaders lead everybody differently. They connect, and they connect by asking questions. They connect by finding out, what those motivations are. I don't have time to go through them today. Again, it's in my book, Developing the Leader Within You 2.0. It's a whole chapter. But I'll just quickly give you the 7 motivations. One is purpose. People are motivated because of purpose. In other words, they want to do what they believe they were created to do. They believe they're here for a purpose in life, and that only in fulfilling that purpose will they be fulfilled. And so that they're motivated by what is your purpose in life. There are some people who are motivated by autonomy. They want They want to be their own boss. They want to have freedom. There are a lot of people in Vaseo that they said, wait a minute, I would like to work for myself. I'd like to have my own freedom. I'd like to have some autonomy. I'd like to own my own dream. I'd like it to be my dream. So they're motivated by that. There are some people that are motivated by relationships. They just want to be and do things with other people. They want to be connected. They love being on a team. Some people are motivated by progress. In other words, they just have to see things happen. When I was in college, I worked my way through college and I literally painted houses. And the one thing I loved about painting houses, there's a whole bunch of things I didn't love, trust me, but the one thing I loved about painting houses is I could see my progress every day. And there were days when I'd say, okay, when I started, I was on this side, and I'm over on another side. And look what I've accomplished. Some people are motivated by progress. Some people are motivated by mastery. And they want to be able to do something so well that they get in that top, 2%. And so they love excelling in their skill and just perfecting it. Some people are motivated by recognition. They just want to be recognized for their accomplishment. They like people to point to them and say, hey, you're the man, you're the woman, you did it. Congratulations, way to go. I love this. Some people are motivated by money. And they just say, wow, I just want to get financially solid. I want to get financially secure. And all of these are important. Why am I giving you that? Because I'm talking about connecting. I'm talking about what are your people motivated for? Look at your team. Find out what's their motivation. And then you motivate them. For example, if I'm motivated by progress, then what you want to do is you want to show me how far I can go and how much I can achieve in your organization. That you just say, hey, wait, if if you look how much progress you can make if you just do these certain things. Well, if I'm motivated by relationships, you want to make sure that I'm with my team and look what you can do together. Okay, you got the picture, but you got to connect with them.
If you're like me, you watch a video like that from Maxwell Leadership and you just get inspired. I love how it's so practical. It just makes a lot of sense. But here's the challenge. We have to commit to each other. We have to commit to change, both in our personal lives and also our professional lives. Looking for more information about the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team? Follow the link below to learn more. We can't wait to hear from you and add value to your lives.